Bomber TV.
Hi guys, Bomber here. Welcome back to the channel, and before we start, a huge thank you to all of my patrons. If you want to join them, please consider checking out the links down below in the description and the pinned comments down below. So yeah guys, here we are. Today we're going to be talking a bit about the meta. I would like to make this into a weekly series. Let me know in the comments if you would like to see it or if you're not so much interested in that. And if you're new to the channel and you want to see more content like this, meta analysis, deck guides from a master tier player, please consider subscribing. That's very appreciated. So yeah, starting off, I don't know actually how to go about this. First of all, I would go towards analyzing the archetypes only from Master, Diamond and Platinum. Probably a bit later into the season I would probably cut it to only Master and Diamond, because that's the players which started, climbing, etc., which are either old Masters, which actually didn't, sit there into Platinum but actually started climbing, so they know what they are doing in this new season. And yeah, of course, even new players, but which are very competitive if they end up being into Master and Diamond. For now, I would also include Platinum, because probably the otherwise the matches played would not be so significant to actually, confirm my statistical analysis or whatever. If a deck or an archetype has only like 100 games played or 1000 even, it's not so much significant compared to, those numbers that we're seeing, like 30,000, etc. So yeah, we will look at these. These are my filters. Of course, I have, the plus Mobalytics. That's kind of needed. But so yeah, first of all, let's look at the most popular archetypes. So starting off with Go Fish, which is actually probably also the most win rate, the best deck currently. So let's take a look at an example of a popular deck about it, and let's break it down. So basically what Fizz and Twisted Fate want to do, like this deck, is to either win from Twisted Fate generating insane amounts of value, and so we see that Twisted Fate has a lot of cards to support him leveling up. For example, the Zanet Urchin, the Ramage, the Stress Testing, which is actually pretty important, and more importantly, the Pick a Card. So Pick a Card is definitely very heavily into, I want to level up Twisted Fate as fast as possible. So this is the idea behind this card. And it is also a great tool to refill your hand later on in the game, when you actually have the mana to cast all the cards that you're drawing, which are fleeting, and you can't actually, keep in your hand. So yeah, this is the first win condition that we have with Twisted Fate Feeds. And the second one is obviously going for elusives and burn damage. So we run Zap Sprayfin, Wiggly Barbelfish. Ballistic Bot is actually, the meeting point between those two strategies. You both create an ignition, a card to discard, thanks to Zanet Urchin or Ramage, which are your first, your best cards at drawing, so to level up Twisted Fate, but also that card is actually a burn card, so you can actually play it to go towards your second win condition, which is burn through elusives right now. And so yeah, just Sprayfin, Wiggly Barbelfish, very strong, because also making those two things go well together, you cast a lot of cheap spells like Ramage, Poro Cannon, Mystic Shot, Get Excited, are also kind of cheap, and they are also burn. And then you want to copy Wiggly Barbelfish with Iterative Improvement, the stuff that you're probably seeing a lot currently into the game. And also, I don't know if I want to make kind of like, this is just breaking down the meta right now, why those are strong, etc. Probably a new video will come after this on what are my suggestions to make the meta better. Probably it will come after later. So what I will change, just a sneak peek, is Zap Sprayfin. It's everywhere. It has been it has been a problem in Go Hard. It's been a problem in Pirate Aggro. It's here now in Twisted Fate feeds, and this card has to go, like, really. But anyways. So yeah, why this deck is so strong? As I said, it's really hard to interact with all of these. Like burn, it's very specific. You have to run heal. Elusives, you have to run removal, or you have to run elusives of your own. So this deck is very uninteractive. If, for example, you are another aggro deck, then you don't run heal, you don't run elusives maybe, and so yeah, you can't really do much about this. Also, this deck has a lot of spells, so it's much more, usually it's much more reactive, so it can actually break other aggro decks. So aggro decks are completely crushed with this deck, and not only, like, you have Twisted Fate, and again, if you don't have removal, if you are an aggro deck, then Twisted Fate is completely owning you in the game, and so aggro decks are very, very bad against this deck. But then, yeah, like, what about mid-range? What about control? Again, like, they have tools to answer Twisted Fate and Feeds, but as the stats says, probably not enough. Like, this deck is too consistent, honestly, and it has been very, very strong. We see that a lot of decks try to counter this deck, like, specifically. In fact, I also did a deck only to counter mostly this deck, since it is so popular and so game-winning, which is, you know, running a lot of Withering Wails, a lot of Ice Shards, Avalanche, Blighted Ravine, and of course that deck is going to be the second one that we're going to look at, which is actually not so strong, but it has probably the best matchup against this. And so without further ado, let's take a look at the second one, which is FTR War Mother Ramp, the new version, which most of the times includes Lissandra, rather than I don't know what actually was probably Trundle, not Trundle, what it was, the Trinamir, a lot of 3TR, you know. But yeah, so in this deck, we actually, they have been experimenting with Lissandra. In my opinion, it is actually better to go for the, you know, classical way with Tryndamere. But yeah, now, of course, a lot of people are experimenting with new stuff, and so we see the Lissandra deck being so much more popular than the other. And so yeah, it is the usual shell of, like, Avarosan, like, oh, not Avarosan, like Freljord and Shadows Islands control. So, you know, as I said earlier, you run a lot of VoEs, Ice Shard, Avalanche, Withering Wail, Blighted Ravine, which is incredible right now. Yeah, you also run some single target removal in the form of Three Sisters, which is actually very consistent, because as a lot of other streamers and you know, master player have noticed, this card's best ability is the flexibility. You need the Fear of the North to make a better trade, you got that. You need to, I don't know, you are up against a Nasus and they're going for Atrocity, you have Flash Freeze. You need to remove something, I don't know what that could be, you have Entomb. You know, it's all in one card, and for the only 1 mana more, you know, the fee that you have to pay is only 1 mana. That's actually very, very consistent. So yeah, you actually run a lot of single target removal, and then you also have Vengeance. And as a Zwinstream, I kind of agree with him. Most of the times Entomb is basically a Vengeance, which costs less. So yeah, you can actually cut Vengeance completely and have 3 Sister instead. But you know, having still 1 Vengeance is alright. And then yeah, you also have Atrocity for the occasional, if you want to burn, you want to reach out, because maybe they are killing your Trundle, they are doing whatever, or you know, you also have the 8/8s from the Frozen Trolls and the Darklord Inquisitor and Lissandra, then you can Atrocity that. It's actually a pretty consistent win condition as well. And then yeah, you run to Kind Heaven Keeper for an additional heal and board presence, and that's the usual deck. I say this is part of the meta, mostly because it counters pretty heavily the TF feeds. With Avalanche and Blighted Ravine, they can actually also kill the Wilgry Bubblefish, even if you have casted the, what is the name? The iterative improvement on them. They gain the +1/+1, so they go to 2 health, but then you can still kill them. And also this is very strong against any other player which are like experimenting with Azir Lucen, we have seen Azir Ephemerals. So yeah, all those decks are completely crushed by cards like Ice Shard, Withering Wail, Avalanche, Blighted Ravine. So yeah, it's a very solid option right now. I made a slightly different version of these. I think it is more consistent to go for Frostbite control with Ash. I have a deck video, deck guide about that. Please check that out. I will probably leave a card up above, if I remember. And so yeah, this is very consistent, as I said, as a counter deck to the most popular ones, which are, you know, going wide. And we will see if these shell actually survives, if we see that the wide aggressive decks start to fall off for something else, and maybe also this deck will actually fall off because it doesn't have their prey, you know, because if they it is a counter deck to some decks. If those decks fall out, then also this one has no reason to exist. So moving on the third deck that I'm going to review, it's a Fiora Shen, actually, with a pretty consistent win rate. We are in the range of like the feeds. So yeah, probably, you know, Lissandra control it's very popular because a lot of people want to experiment with it, and a lot of people are basically bored and frustrated about playing against TF feeds, and so they are playing that a lot. But it is actually, as you've seen, it has not such a high win rate, because only if you ever go up against TF feeds or Azir Lucian, Azir Ephemerals, you have a pretty insane win rate, because it is a counter deck. And if you don't face them a lot, then you will see that this win rate is actually not that good, as we have seen. Instead, like, TF feeds or Fiora Shen are consistent on their own. So that's why they are so popular and also so strong. Those is probably suited for the competitive people which actually want to play the best deck ever. And so yeah, Fiora Shen, a lot of value. Basically, Fiora Shen is, the keyword here is value, simply. And so yeah, we have Fiora, we have Shen, we have the Barrier sub-archetype, so we want to run Green Glade Caretaker, Fleet Feeder Tracker for the turn 1 into Bright Steel Protector. Good with either Green Glade Caretaker or Fleet Feeder Tracker. Fleet Feeder Tracker if you want to trade, for example, a Legion Saboteur or, I don't know, something. If they go into a Lucian, for example, on turn 2, if they are attacking. Actually not, if they're attacking, it's probably bad. So for example, on turn 2 you can sometimes do like passing, then they play Lucian, you have the attack token, you go then only after with Bright Steel Protector and you actually kill the Lucian. So yeah, you have some strong plays on Fiora Shen, but later on what actually wins you the game is the value that this deck generates. In the form of like the River Shaper, Lauren Chevalier, Screeching Dragon with Challenger taking off units with value trades. It is very great to counter stuff which is very popular right now, like TF Feeds or Alessandra. You can take this basically a removal on a body, which can remove actually more times than just one. And again, then we have the barrier package, which is still returning in with this, because River Shaper and Lauren Chevalier or Challenger in general actually want sometimes to have barrier, especially the River Shaper and Lauren Chevalier, to have the protection so that they can strike more. And so that's why then you also go for Shen, which has barrier, and actually Fiora. It's even, that's why this deck works, because Fiora also actually wants to have barrier, because she has to survive, she has to kill enemies, and sometimes another great thing about this deck is this is basically a mid-range deck, very oriented towards value, but actually can win against control decks, which probably will generate more value than you, but this can win against those decks as well, because Fiora is a combo piece. You can win off of Fiora not because of value, but because Fiora is a win condition on her own. She's a combo piece, basically. And so yeah, that's why this is basically a mid-range value combo deck, which actually checks off a lot of matchups. This is strong against aggro because you simply outvalue them. This is strong against control because you simply can combo. They are slow, so they don't put a lot of pressure on you, so you can combo pretty easily and you win off of Fiora. If they have removal, that's a different story, but sometimes it works. And yeah, then as I said, you have a lot of barrier protection for that, so Repose, Spirit's Refuge, single combat to again activate Fiora and Consider Strike as well, also to activate River Shaper, Lord and Chevalier. They also are, of course, removal, so this deck is very, very synergistic. You also have the Knight to counter some power tools which are not so common right now, but they were. For example, if they have the Arrowing or the Ruination or FTR, which is not so popular now, as I said, but you can remove those pesky big spells that they are then in condition, or again use deny as it's usually used. If they go for, I don't know, a Vengeance or whatever, you can simply deny that if you don't want that spell to resolve. And so yeah, this deck is very, very popular, very, very strong. It has been in the meta for quite a while now, so also probably they should nerf something here and there, but for now we have Fiora Shen, which is very, very strong at 3rd place in popularity. Then we also have the simple Fiora. I wouldn't go too much into the deck analysis about this. I will just show you what that deck looks like. It is basically an all-in Fiora. It is almost like Fiora Shen, but you simply, as you see, like you only have one unit, which is Fiora, and that's it. And then yeah, you simply go all in into Fiora. No, okay, let's analyze this. Basically, in the mulligan, you want to mulligan everything out except for Fiora, and maybe if you don't see the Fiora, then Entreat, because Entreat will give you the Fiora. So actually, the chances of getting Fiora by turn 3, if you also have an Entreat, which is basically a copy of Fiora, an additional copies of Fiora, then it's actually around 90%, so this deck is actually very consistent at drawing Fiora. You simply have to always mulligan everything except the Fiora or the Entreat, and so that's how you get that consistency. Probably not 19%, like 80%, stuff like that. You have to calculate that, but it's very consistent nonetheless. And you know, if you get her on turn 4 or 5, it is still fine, you know. Of course, it will be much harder. And then, yeah, guys, you have all tools to make the Fiora survive. You have Frostbite to, you know, when you challenge, you Frostbite them so they actually don't deal damage to Fiora. You have protection like Chain Vest if they try to Bile Feast or Wailing Whale, and, you know, you have that protection stacking up later on. Elixir of Iron if they try to Mystic Shot or get excited. Sharp Sight again, same concept. Single combat is to get faster the win condition of Fiora and actually to remove something pesky like, you know, Twisted Fate or whatever. You can actually remove that by challenging, but you know, if you don't have the attack token, then you can single combat that. Throat Chant again, protection and some more potential for value trading. Flash Freeze, same as Brittle Steel but a bit more expensive, so probably you want to go for Brittle Steel more. Strafing Strike, you see, since you want so bad to level up Fiora and to actually win the game afterwards, you want to run as many strikes as you can. And so Strafing Strike is just that. It's just a more expensive single combat in this deck. That's basically what it is. Then you have Take Heart. For example, Fiora sometimes gets damaged, and if you have that Take Heart, it is basically a standalone, but for 1 less mana. So that's interesting. It has a condition, of course, but you know, it's 1 less mana when it happens. Golden Aegis, again, protection and rally, which translates into Fiora challenging, basically, and so striking, and therefore, you know, it's basically as another single combat, which also has a barrier, so a protection and a strike on you know, on the same card. Standalone again, because you go past removals, you can trade better, so yeah, that's the reason why. Consider Strike, we have already say that, you know, the strikes, etc. And then you have Unyielding Spirit. If they try to go for a Vengeance, for example, you never want to cast this proactively, you want to cast this reactively. So if they try to remove the Fiora by going for, you know, a Vengeance, they are tapped out, and then you go for Unyielding Spirit. This basically has a deny. Let's look at that like that, but it is a deny which is stronger because that means that afterwards they actually can't almost kill the Fiora ever. Only if they have Silence or Return to Hand or Obliterate, which are very, very rare. And so yeah, after you successfully protect the Fiora with an Unyielding Spirit after a Vengeance or an Entomb, actually Entomb works. So yeah, that's also why Entomb is so strong. So yeah, after a Vengeance or you know, whatever else removal, then yeah, you go for an Unyielding Spirit, and that's a good game. After that, they can't recover. Why this deck is so strong, I actually don't know all that much. Why now? We have seen that Fiora is the mono Fiora, you know, all-in Fiora, however you want to call it, was a thing back in the days, and it fell off of popularity in the last seasons, but now it's going back. So why now? I don't have an answer for that, but I don't really know, guys. Let's be honest here. Probably because a lot of players are experimenting with the new stuff. These are very probably they don't have so much success with aggro, which probably preys upon you know, the Fiora matchup. There is not a lot of removal. There is not probably you don't see the meta which is adapted yet to these decks surfacing back. So we will see how this evolves. But right now it's I don't like going for combo decks which go all in. But if you are that type of person, then now it's the time to play Fiora all in decks, because now they are doing quite well, as you're seeing. So let's move on. I will probably analyze the 5. So this is the last one. We have the Endure Aggro, actually, as the most popular. Then we also look briefly at the most winning, actually. So yeah, the Endure Aggro, yeah, that's what it is. Which actually doesn't have Endure, so I don't know why it's called like that. This seems to me more like a, yeah, Kindred Nasus. Probably there is an error in the, you know, the Mobalytics showing off that name. Mobalytics, oh, probably, no, that is not why it says like that. Yeah, sometimes Mobalytics is a bit bugged. They still have to improve something here and there. Also, you know, the mulligan, the matchups that don't quite work all that well currently. So yeah, definitely it is still a work in progress. And charging $50 for, you know, a year of a product which is not even completed, it's debatable, but whatever. Okay, so yeah, Kindred Nasus, very strong. It's actually... This deck is actually pretty strange, because this plays out as an aggro, but it has a lot of potential of becoming a control tool. So you see, like, Kindred, of course, is the control tool by definition, probably, you know, constantly generating value, constantly removing every turn a threat, very, very strong. And then again, as I said, you can play definitely this as aggro. You see that this is a very, very, very heavily aggressive, you know, you can start with Bark Beast, or Dreamkeeper, that's already 4 damage by turn 1, then turn 2, you probably, if you're attacking on turn 2, you can go for something like Doomkeeper, Bark Beast, Uranus Butcher, the Sand Soldier, and suddenly you have a 3-2, a 3-3, and a 2-1 attacking on turn 2. That's already 8 damage by turn 2, that's crazy. So yeah, you can definitely play these very, very aggressively. You have the Slay mechanic constantly going on, you know, you can glimpse beyond your wide pieces like the Fading Icon Prey, or the Cursed Keeper, Apples Aristocrat. Those are, you know, the sacrificial pieces. Also you have Spirit Leech, again, to draw consistently, always refilling your very low curve. Otherwise, you know, you have a very low curve, so you have to have a lot of draw tools to actually keep having something to spend your mana on in the late game, so that's why you're drawing so much. And also drawing naturally also works towards drawing your champions, which are so strong here. You know, Kindred, if you have a game where you don't have a Kindred, the win rate probably goes down by a lot. Kindred is very, very strong, so you actually want to mulligan it, probably, even if you're an aggro deck. Or, you know, try to draw it as fast as possible, and that's why we want to draw so much. And also Nasus. Nasus is more like your win condition later on. If your aggro playstyle doesn't work, then you have Nasus. You always have Nasus into Atrocity. So that's basically a more combo. This is basically like they endure aggro. If you look at it, it's basically the same shell, but you run Nasus instead of Dave Endure, and you actually can go into Shurima, so you have some other tools like Rite of Calling, Doomkeeper, which are very... Doomkeeper is very aggressive, Rite of Calling is to more consistently get your power tools, Kindred and Nasus, and Rite of Negation, actually, so you are into Ionia, basically, with Rite of Negation. By the way, now that Rite of Negation is in the game, Ionia is completely dead. The only reason to go into Ionia was Deny, and now it's gone. And so yeah, that's basically Dev Endure 2.0 into Shurima with Nasus. But in my opinion, this deck is probably a bit too overrated. I would rather go into Kindred, Dev Endure, actually. So that's why you see that this is an Endure aggro. Now I get it. Because it is just Dev Endure, but instead of Dev Endure you have Nasus. Okay, so now I finally... that's why, probably mistakenly, the site decided that this is an Endure aggro, probably because they see all those cards which are basically a Dev Endure deck, but then it's actually Nasus, but yeah, so that's fine. So now we looked into the most popular decks, so let's actually look at the best winning decks, and we will see that there is a lot of you know, overlapping. So you see, Go Fish, of course, is the strongest right now. They definitely need to do something about either Twisted Fate or, as I said, Zap Sprayfin. Spoiler alert. Lusa Nazir is actually very strong, but again, I wouldn't be too... how can I say it? Too, like... 1,000 game is not that much, you know, so like this number here is not as meaningful as those other ones. Like 30,000 games definitely are a lot. That's like what it is. Only 1% of games, but you know, that's pretty. Still, that's a lot statistically. Instead, 1,000 is not a low amount, but still not as significant as 30,000. The same goes for Zoya Felios, only 3,000. 10, you know. That you can say that this value here is 10 times less accurate than this one, because this one has 10 times more sample size. So yeah, that's why I wouldn't look too much into those numbers. So actually, I would say that the second best winning deck is Fiora Shen, actually. So you see, this is in the range of 30,000. So yeah, Fiora Shen is the actual second place. And then you have Slow Burn. Again, not so popular right now, probably because people got tired of playing the same thing over and over again. But again, 6,000, even if it is 5 times less accurate than Go Fish, 6,000 is in my opinion, considerable, at least. So let's actually look at the third most winning deck, which is Slow Burn right now, and I would probably call it a day for this video. So this is the last deck that we are analyzing. And so we see Draven as real, the usual stuff. The idea behind this deck is that you want to have a lot of discard targets, so that's why you run Ballistic Bot, Champ Womp actually. this is kind of strange. Champ 1 wasn't run too much in this deck, but probably it's going back. And then you want to discard those cards thanks to some Dredger, Ramage, and that's it. So that you can draw more consistently. You can of course, Draven is also generating discard targets in the form of spinning axes. So that, yeah, those discard then draw cards are actually very, very efficient at drawing cards. The only drawback is, of course, that you are first discarding some others. But if you actually have cards that you want to discard, then you basically can gain a ton of value, a ton of end size differential between your opponent, you and your opponent, for very, very close to no cost. You know, like summoning at 3 mana for 3 is already very valuable. Let's say that this card was instead 3 mana for 3, draw a card. That would be completely busted, but that's what it is in this deck, actually. You can basically discard a trash card that you wouldn't never play, and so, you know, you draw a card instead. That's pretty significant. The same goes for Ramage. Imagine if this card was 1 mana burst, draw 2. That would be crazy. Glimpse Beyond is a 2 mana draw 2, but you have to sacrifice a unit. Salvage is a 4 mana draw 2. So you see, this card is 4 times more efficient. So yeah, it's enough of a reason to go into the discard package. And yeah, I was skeptical a bit at the first time I saw Draven as real. Why not go for Swain as real, for example? It's a bit more control. But yeah, the discard package is so strong that it's actually a good reason to go for it. And why is it called slow burn? Because again, this looks like a control deck, and then you kinda can win only with Ezreal, burning your opponent slowly. That's why it is slow burn. Or you wait until turn 8, cast Captain Pharaon, and, you know, slowly again burn them out, probably on the following turns with the Decimates. Now that the Captain Pharaon was nerfed from 3 Decimates to 2, now it's much more healthy. This is a much healthier deck. Before, like, you could get some damage in the early game, and only 8, if you didn't run heal, only 8 damage in the early game was enough to, okay, you're dead. By turn 8, you're dead. As soon as I get Captain Pharaon, you're going to die, because from only taking 8 damage made you go to 12, and you don't know, Captain Pharaon could burn you from 12 down to 0, and that was pretty toxic. But you could say, yeah, Bomber, but, you know, now it's only 8, so from 12 to 8, but it is much more controllable. Like, another reason why that was so strong was because you could actually burn them out from 20, because you also had Mystic Shot. This decklist doesn't run Get Excited, but some others do, so yeah, you could actually burn them from 20, thanks to Captain Pharaon, the Decimates from Captain Pharaon, and Mystic Shot and Get Excited. You know, for example, only Get Excited, Mystic Shot, that was already 8 damage, and it is very likely that you could draw those cards in a very long game, and that was enough to then give the Captain Pharaon the reach that it needs, you know, 12 damage. But now, reaching 8 only from burn spells, that's probably all of them. You know, Get Excited, that's 9 damage, you go to 11, then you need a Mystic Shot and another one. So almost all the burn cards in your hand to burn them down from 20. Of course, then you could go into other ways. For example, burn them with Ezreal. But, you know, that gives much more control over your opponent to actually counter your playstyle, and that's why that nerf was very, very significant. And but so yeah, then you also have 3-beam Improbolator, very strong tempo swing, because you run actually a lot of 3-costed cards, as you see, you know, Nox and Guillotine, Scorched Earth, Arachnoid Sentry, some Dredger, and Ezreal and Raven, which are actually your champions, which you are probably going to play almost all the times. And so yeah, 3-beam is a very strong tempo tool. And again, then removal, Thermogenic Beam, Ravenous Flock, Noxian Guillotine, Scorched Earth, Static Shock, both working towards giving targets to Ezreal, and also the pings that then work well with Scorched Earth and Noxian Guillotine. Not only by being a good card on its own, because you could ping 2 things with just 1 card, and this card could be a 3-in-1, you know? You ping something, you kill it, you ping something, you kill it, and you draw 1, so you get 3 cards off of 1. And so yeah, guys, that's it for this deck, and I think that's actually it for this video, for this meta review, meta analysis of this season, of this patch 2.3. I would probably go for a weekly series about, you know, discussing the meta, discussing the best decks, And yeah, let me know in the comments if you would like to see this type of videos, or if or maybe you just even didn't get there, so that then I would know that you probably are not interested in it. But if you are still watching right now, please write me in the comments if you liked these. What would you change? What would you like to see more? Yeah, just give me feedback. I always read the comments. I always try to answer as soon as I can. So, and also, again, if you are reached until now, please consider subscribing if you want to stay updated with this weekly series and all the other content that I make, and also enter my Discord server. In there, we can chat much more freely. And so yeah, guys, I think that's it for this video. So yeah, guys, that's it for this video. If you liked it, please consider subscribing, leaving a like, a comment, and checking out the links in the description and the pinned comment. In there you will find my Instagram, my Twitter, my Patreon, my Discord server, where you can continue to chat with me and all the rest of the community. So that's it for this video. Hope you liked it and find it useful, and as always, see ya.